This is Lake Mead. Or rather, this is the ghost of Lake Mead. That massive white bathtub ring you see is not a high water mark. It is a tombstone. It shows where the water used to be. The American West, the engine of the world's largest economy, is drying up. The mighty Colorado River, the lifeblood of 40 million people, now rarely reaches the sea. This is not a distant forecast. It is an existential crisis happening right now. This scarcity is triggering political conflict. We see it in the stalled negotiations between the United States and Canada over the Columbia River Treaty. We hear it when politicians like Donald Trump speak of Canada's millions of gallons of water. We see the response when leaders like Mark Carney declare that water is public trust, not a commodity. But this political fight is a distraction. It is a zero-sum game. It is two neighbors arguing over how to divide a shrinking pie. These solutions are slow, they are inefficient, and they will not solve the fundamental problem. But what if the answer isn't to fight over the water that's left? What if the answer is to create more? While the politicians are arguing, the engineers are building. While the diplomats are deadlocked, the innovators are racing ahead. This is not a story about conflict. This is a story about innovation. This is the story of the blue gold revolution, the blue gold rush. Why are the world's smartest venture capitalists suddenly pouring billions of dollars into water? The global water and wastewater technology market is not a niche sector. It is a massive $900 billion industry, and it is projected to grow substantially. These investors are not betting on the commodity. They are betting on the technology. They are funding desalination, advanced recycling, and AI-powered smart sensors. They understand a fundamental truth that most of the world is just waking up to. Water security has officially replaced energy security as the most critical foundation for a modern, stable nation. You can run a country without oil. You cannot run it without water. To understand the future of this trillion-dollar market, we don't look to Washington or Ottawa. We look to two small isolated nations that had no other choice. We look to the countries that turned their greatest weakness into an existential strength. We look to the new water superpowers. The water superpowers. Case study. 1. The OPEC of water, Israel. Well, here is the great paradox of the 21st century. How does a nation that is 60% desert become a water exporter? How does a country founded on arid land now have a surplus of water? The answer is not a miracle. It is engineering. It is a national strategy built on three pillars. Pillar 1, production, desalination. The first pillar is the most dramatic. Make your own water. Israel decided that it would no longer be dependent on unpredictable rainfall. It would harvest the one resource it had in abundance, the Mediterranean Sea. The technology is called reverse osmosis, or RO. In simple terms, you take seawater and push it at incredibly high pressure through a series of advanced membranes. These membranes are so fine that they trap the salt, minerals, and impurities and allow only pure, fresh water to pass through. Israel did not just build a plant, it built a national water assembly line. Today, 5 massive desalination plants dot the Israeli coast. The Sorek plant, just south of Tel Aviv, is one of the largest and most efficient in the world. It produces hundreds of millions of cubic meters of fresh water every single year. Think about this number. As of 2025, these 5 plants provide 80% of all municipal drinking water in the entire country. They have effectively cracked the code of the ocean. They have made themselves drought-proof. Pillar 2, recycling, the agricultural miracle. But making water is only half the battle. The other half is keeping it. This brings us to Israel's second pillar, recycling. Israel recycles nearly 90% of its wastewater. This is, by far, the highest rate on the planet. Spain, in second place, recycles around 20%. The United States recycles less than 10%. Now, it is critical to understand what this water is used for. It is not for drinking. This highly treated water is piped directly to the nation's farms. It is the lifeblood of their agricultural industry. It is what allows the Negev Desert to bloom. It is what allows a desert nation to grow dates, olives, and tomatoes for export. They have created a closed loop where almost no water is ever truly lost. Pillar 3. Conservation, the invention. You cannot have a water revolution without efficiency. This is Israel's third pillar, and it is the one that started it all. They invented modern drip irrigation. The concept is simple but revolutionary. Instead of wastefully spraying water into the air, where most of it evaporates, a drip irrigation delivers precise amounts of water and nutrients directly to the roots of the plants. There is no waste. This invention, commercialized by companies like Netafim, reduces agricultural water use by up to 95%. It allows farmers to grow more food with less water. When you combine these three pillars, production from the sea, recycling from the cities, and conservation on the farms, you get the full picture. Israel has mastered scarcity. They turned their greatest national weakness, a lack of water, into their greatest technological strength. And today they export this knowledge, this technology, and these strategies to the rest of the world, including to desperate, dry states like California and India. They have, in effect, become the OPEC of water technology. Israel has solved the water problem for a nation built on a desert. But how does this model apply to a nation that is not a desert, but a dense, isolated urban jungle? How do you achieve water security when you have no land at all? For that blueprint, we turn to a small island in Southeast Asia. Case study. 2. The blueprint for cities, Singapore. This is Singapore, a tiny, dense island nation with 5.6 million people. It has no major rivers. It has no natural aquifers. It has almost no land to even store rainwater. By all logic, Singapore should be one of the most water-vulnerable places on Earth. For its entire history, it was dependent on importing fresh water from its neighbor, Malaysia. This was not just an economic dependency. It was a profound political vulnerability. The water agreements were, and are, a source of constant political friction. The current agreements are set to expire. This is a ticking time bomb. So decades ago, Singapore's leaders decided they would achieve total water independence. They called their strategy the 4 national taps. It is a masterclass in resource management. The first tap, local catchment. Singapore decided to turn its entire urban landscape into a sponge. 2/3 of the nation's land area is now used as a water catchment. Rain that falls on buildings, roads, and parks is channeled through a vast network of drains into 17 massive, man-made reservoirs. The Marina Bay Sands, that iconic hotel, sits on top of a reservoir that was once the open sea. The second tap, imported water. This is the tap from Malaysia. It is the tap they are strategically trying to close. The third tap, desalination. Like Israel, Singapore has embraced the ocean. They have built multiple large-scale desalination plants to provide a reliable, drought-proof source of drinking water. But it is the fourth tap that is the true genius of their system. It is the key to their future. The fourth tap, Newater. This is the star of the show. Newater is Singapore's brand name for ultra-pure, recycled water. This is not simple recycling. This is a 3-stage technological marvel. First, wastewater is treated at a conventional plant. Then, that treated water is forced through advanced microfiltration to screen out particles and bacteria. Second, it goes through reverse osmosis, the same technology used in desalination, to remove any remaining viruses or contaminants. Finally, it is disinfected with powerful ultraviolet UV light, making it exceptionally clean and safe. The result? Water that is so pure, it is actually cleaner than the water that comes from your tap. Today, Newater can meet 40% of Singapore's total water demand. The goal is to raise that to 55% by the year 2060. But the greatest challenge Singapore faced was not engineering, it was psychology. How do you convince 5.6 million people to drink what was once sewage? How do you overcome the yuck factor? They did it with a brilliant campaign of public education and total transparency. They branded it. They didn't call it recycled sewage. They called it Newater. They built a beautiful, high-tech Newater visitor center that thousands of school children tour every year. They bottled it in sleek blue bottles and handed it out at national events. They made drinking new water an act of patriotic environmental stewardship. They turned a yuck factor into a national pride factor. New water is a masterpiece of both engineering and social marketing. Israel's model solved the water problem for a nation. Singapore's model provides the blueprint for the megacities of the future. This is the solution for London, for Los Angeles, for Mumbai, for Shanghai. It is the key to urban resilience in a century of scarcity. The new frontier and the conclusion. The new frontier. Israel and Singapore show us what is possible right now, but the race for blue gold is accelerating. The next wave of innovation is moving beyond massive, centralized plants. It is getting smarter and smaller. What if you could place a machine in a remote village, or even in the desert, and it could pull clean drinking water directly from the air? This is atmospheric water generation, or AWG. Dozens of startups are developing technologies that can condense, capture, and filter the humidity in the air. It is still expensive. It is not a solution for a whole city, but for a hospital, a military base, or a remote community, it is a life-changing technology. At the same time, the revolution is happening on our farms. The future of agriculture is smart agriculture. It is AI-powered sensors that tell a farmer exactly which plant needs water. It is precision irrigation that uses 70% less water to grow more crops. The revolution is not just about producing more water. It is about using the water we have with radical digital intelligence. The trillion-dollar thesis. For decades, we have been told that the next conflicts will be water wars. That is the old way of thinking. That is the zero-sum game of politics. The reality is that this is not a war. This is a race. And this brings us to our core thesis. The greatest wealth of the 21st century will not come from controlling rivers, the way we controlled oil. It will come from creating and recycling it. Blue gold is the next great trillion-dollar market. The nations and the companies that solve scarcity, the ones that master desalination, recycling, and smart conservation, are not just ensuring their own survival. They are building the foundation of their economic dominance for the next 100 years. The flywheel, the next briefing. We have covered the technology saving our cities and our farms, but the next frontier for water isn't on the ground. Our next briefing explores the controversial trillion-dollar race to control the sky. The truth about cloud seeding, the resonance point, the final question, from the dry bed of Lake Mead to the high-tech desalination plants of Israel and the ultra-pure new water of Singapore. The future of water is being written by engineers, not politicians. We've seen massive desalination plants and ultra-pure recycling. Looking to the future, which water technology do you believe will have the biggest impact on global security in the next decade? Creating it from the sea or saving it on the land?